This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Hello, brand members. Welcome. Episode 7, Brokenstinger. I come to you today weighing $125, bro. Apparently. Yep. Goofy me. According to Lazy, Lover, Loony, Lumpy Lane, actually. The funny thing is, you could call me Lumpy with my life. I'm not going to show you that. Oop. Still got my wristband on. I just got back from a wrestling event, Wrestle Pro, over here in Jersey. Met the Spirit Squad again. Great guys, great guys. Kenny is, that guy's just an athlete, and Mike Mondo is a terrific guy. He doesn't have any hair anymore, but I'm getting to that point. Hopefully not too soon. But yeah, great guys. I met Al Snow, and man, I feel bad. You're seeing these guys get older, and Al just seems so out of it. Like, he was talking maybe he just speaks softly. I don't know, because I finally met him, and he didn't let me touch head. The head. I don't want to actually touch it. I'm not going to get into that. Okay. But yeah, met Al Snow, and as subtle as he was and kind of out of energy in person, I'll tell you what, he got in the ring, he can still go. I don't know how old he is. I think Wikipedia, I'm guessing around his 50s, and he was going balls to the wall with pace, and then I got to talk to him after the match, and it was a cool chat. So, a couple other things this week. There's the Santino Marella Jim Cornette altercation at the Comic-Con or something like that over in Detroit, and Eric Bischoff and Bret Hart going back and forth at each other. They've done it over the years, and I've listened to a lot of good shoot interviews on YouTube, and I think it's finally come to a head, and I think if you put these guys in a room, it could get worse than the barbed wire with all the blood and shit that I just saw today in the main event. Potentially. These guys have been going at it for a little while. What do I want to discuss first? Marella and Cornette, or Bret Hart and... Marella and Cornette first. Of course, anybody that doesn't know Santino Marella, Jim Cornette, the incident that started the heat between all of them in Ohio Valley Wrestling, Santino Marella was a student there, and Cornette was booking a show one day, and the Boogeyman was debuting, and he had an awkward entrance, his horns were falling off, and as he was leaving the stage where the show was being taped, Santino Marella was the only person, you could actually look up this video on YouTube, sitting down like this, not all painted up and good looking, but sitting down like this, laughing at the Boogeyman. And Cornette took exception to that. He was sitting down yelling, "My God, get out! It's dangerous! It's dangerous!" And the Boogeyman got pissed off about it. Like, he basically kind of made a joke out of it on television, and Cornette slapped him backstage, and he's talked about it over the years. Santino finally fired back a little while ago saying, "Oh, I didn't want to hit him because I didn't want to get deported." And Cornette, being Cornette, responds to that instead of talking about it in person. Because, you know what I noticed about Jim Cornette? I've kind of listened to a lot of his shoot interviews over the years. Funny guy to listen to. But he's said a lot of nasty things about Vince, and I kind of listened to Vince's side over the years, and I have to side with Vince now. And this guy kind of reminds me of Hitler. Just horrible human being, but terrific speaker. So, maybe if I'm wrong, because I don't know the guy, but somebody wants to tell me if that's an accurate description. But anyway, so they finally met at Detroit. The promoter, or whoever was booking this event, booked Cornette, and then I believe Bobby Heenan, of course, and he couldn't make it. He passed away. and she had no idea there was a history between the two. And it's pretty funny in the video where they meet up. You could hear Santino's all calm with his coffee, and Cornette's like, "God damn, I don't want to talk to you, motherfucker. Get away from me. I'm gonna knock you up." I don't know. Fun stuff. But I got my money on Morella because Cornette's a fat, old bastard. With all due respect. Just like I'm a buck 35 skinny kid with his face painted. It is what it is. So, just some fun stuff with that over the weekend, and then we get into the bigger stuff where they never met face to face, but Bret Hart and Eric Bischoff going at it. And I think the first interview where Bret called out Bischoff was maybe last year, and he basically said that Bischoff was the stupidest idiot he ever met in his life when he was on Jericho's podcast. And I think he accused Bischoff had all this talent, like Benoit, Guerrero, Sting, Macho Man, and he didn't know what to do with any of them. And he basically blamed Bischoff. He said he would go to Bischoff with ideas. Can I work with Booker T? Can I work with this guy? Can I work with that guy? And Bischoff would shoot it down, and Bischoff was a Hogan mark, and Hogan was calling the shots, and Hogan basically kept Bret down. There might be merit to that, I don't know. But, yeah, Bischoff, Bret talks about a story where he didn't agree for a segment in one show where Hogan was going to come down, and he was out there and interfere, and then he went to Bischoff and said, I don't think he has any business being out there. And Bischoff said, okay, well, he doesn't have to if he's okay with it, if Hogan's okay with it. And they approached him, and Bischoff was nervous, and then there was this big breath of fresh air when Hogan okayed it. So, kind of odd, but yeah, it stems from that. I guess Bret was a little frustrated with WCW, and Bischoff fired back. The first interview I heard with him addressing Bret was him saying Bret was, of course, a shell of his former self, coming over from the screw job, and he would show up to shows late. And this was recently. He fired back at Bret, saying he'd show up to shows late, and he didn't have the passion, and he didn't seem to care. And Bret just recently fired back, saying he wishes he could strangle him. I'd pay to see that. Strangle Bischoff, saying that he wanted to stick it up Vince McMahon's ass, and there's a big disagreement there. And so we'll see if this escalates even further. The only thing, it would be a Morella Cornette face-to-face. That would be the next level. So I will be all over that if it happens. And as a matter of fact, the interviews that I'm talking about recently between the two was conducted with Sam Roberts, who I met at WrestleCon, or at a wrestling event last year, and I asked him about it, and he said he wishes he can get them both in the same room. I find it pretty funny. I've just listened to these interviews yesterday, and then he's at the wrestling event I'm going to today, or I was at, and I told him, fuck yeah, I'd love to see that. Or maybe me and, I don't know, me and Sting. Make it happen, Vince. No. We'll see. Maybe it'll happen one day. Who knows? But, yep. Good stuff.
Alternate TV.
To me, the thing with Bret is I just don't think him and I don't want to say Owen. I don't think he really fit into the Attitude Era and that time of wrestling. Even going to WCW, there wasn't Attitude Era, but they were trying to compete attitude-wise. He was at his peak in the mid-90s when it was say your prayers, take your vitamins, and it was just a different TV style. And I just don't think he thrived in the new environment, whether it be WWF or WCW. Kurt Hennig was the same way. That's why Vince let a lot of these guys go there, because they weren't going to thrive in WWF. And I think Bret is frustrated to this day, and he is the opposite of humble. Nice guy, but in terms of, I don't know, he's always putting himself over. I guess he's been through a lot, and he deserves the credit, but I just think that he buries people a lot. Like, he buried the hatchet with Ric Flair, though, and he made up with Shawn Michaels, but I think deep down, he just doesn't like these guys, and he always wanted to be the best, and I don't know, I think I saw there was another interview he did not long ago with some other stupid radio show where the co-host was kissing his ass and saying, oh yeah, Shawn Michaels isn't even top 10, and he sat there with a smile. And, you know, obviously I don't agree with that. I wanted to say to the co-host, you know, you're a moron if you want to kiss this guy, you know, Bret's ass, but don't say Shawn Michaels isn't in the top 10. You're going to be a Magoo? I don't think Shawn Michaels is in the top 10. Ooh, we're going to the big event. Kenny Omega or Helen Keller. John Cena needs to do that. I'm not going to do Wade right now, but yeah, I don't know. Bret just comes off as someone who he cares very much about his image, and he doesn't hold back with what he talks about. He did a really nasty shoot interview summer of 2015, if you ever look that up, where he talks about he buries Owen Hart's widow, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Triple H, Ultimate Warrior, Jake Roberts, Hulk Hogan, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. He just buries all these people. And so, but there's a little bit of merit to it. Getting back to the argument with Bischoff saying that he would show up, you know, late, not really into it. Like Steve Austin mentioned in a Hall of Fame speech that, you know, Bret would always come, but he would always be late. So that kind of, I'm leaning towards, you know, Bischoff was a little more ready. That for whatever reason, Bret just wasn't into it. But that wouldn't make sense because you'd think he would want to stick it up Vince's ass. And bullshitter Bischoff has lied before, so who knows? Who the hell knows? But interesting to see where this turns. As far as Cornette and Santino, I'm glad Santino, you know, Cornette wants to talk all this stuff on his podcast and then meet up in person, you know, and have to answer to it. So, I would have paid for a brawl. Goddamn, I'm gonna hit you with my tennis racket. I'm gonna stick my foot up your ass. I'm from Italy. I don't know, go something like that. I'd pay for that. Green tea, folks. I prefer coffee, but it's better for you. But yeah, getting back to Bret and Eric, a couple interesting interviews on YouTube over the years. I think I've come to the conclusion with Bret that he's done a lot of shoot interviews over the years, and he's just, like I said, he just can't let it go. He thinks back to his past, and he's been through a lot. You think stroke, cancer, death in the family, divorce, screw job, and I'm thinking maybe he has the mentality like, oh, I pulled through all this, F everybody that didn't help me out, you know, during my career, but he keeps dwelling on the past. He can't let it go. And it was interesting in one of his shoot interviews where he buried Scott Hall, Triple H, HBK, a few other people, Owen's widow. He called the Clique a cancer, and it was like literally right before he got cancer. So it's just strange. If you want your life to improve, law of attraction, you focus on what you don't like and more of what's bad, guess what? You're going to get more of it. So I feel bad for him. Like I said, he's been through a lot, but it's interesting to see where this feud's going to go. If that were up to me, I would like to make them dance like little puppets. But Bischoff has been burying Russo for years, so I kind of think he deserves it, you know. I'm going to try to meet him next month, but yeah, Eric and Bret, I don't know, like I said on YouTube, I'm going to play a clip real quick. This was Bret on Sam Roberts' podcast, and actually I met Sam Roberts at a recent wrestling event. This is a picture of me and him from a year ago. I know, horrible paint job. I did it quick in the bathroom. That's why I do it and then drive there, hoping not to get pulled over. If I do, I got donuts ready. But anyway.
We've spoken once before, but it was years ago.
Scott Hall had some match where he threw a really lousy punch.
Don't remember that.
There was a lot of history, a lot of... he was like a broken toy, or he didn't...
Oh, here's the meat and potatoes
there.
there.
Guy, but he was just the worst. I feel so bad, because I went to WCW really one to make a difference. And I think if you look at WCW and all the names that they had and all the wrestlers and all the other things, they had everything. All they needed was somebody that knew what to do, like someone with half.
And I would think that after what happened to you, you would want to go to WCW and shove it up Vince's ass, right?
Right.
That would be the plan, and then you
I've
can't.
seen Eric Bischoff. I've heard his quote, which is probably why I get pretty hostile about Eric Bischoff, about Bret Hart came here. He was like a broken toy, or he didn't.
That's what he said.
Have the same fire. Like I could strangle him when I hear him say that, because it's like that is so not true. I was like on fire, I wanted to take the world on. I wanted to take that whole company. I wanted to kick Vince right in the teeth and give him like the best matches. Booker T, give me Benoit, give me Sting, give me Hogan, give me all these guys. We'll turn this thing, get this thing really rocking here. And he was.
I think his matches with Sting were underrated. He doesn't talk about him a lot, but he said that him and Sting was the only good thing about WCW. But anyway.
Such an idiot. I mean, I would say all that right to him if he was sitting there.
I believe you.
You are an idiot, and you cost everybody. Like, if you look at wrestling today, it's a monopoly.
Yeah.
So the wrestler.
I don't know, what Brett needs to understand is WCW, AOL, and companies that merged and then helped take over, they wanted nothing to do with wrestling, so I don't think he gets that. I think he's venting his frustrations a little misguidedly here, but go on, Brett. Go on.
Wrestlers themselves have no leverage of any kind. They can't, it's like, oh, if you don't pay me, I'm going to go to WCW like the old days. That that was so much better for the wrestlers, because then we have a bargaining table. But today, no. And that's all Eric Bischoff's fault. He killed the wrestling business. Wow. He was the worst.
Well, I'll tell you, after this, all I want to do in life is get you and Eric Bischoff in the same room and do it on my show.
It wouldn't be fun. I mean, I like Eric. Like, I know he was always nice to me. There's things that he did, like he flew me home after my brother Owen died. He got a Learjet and flew me home and paid me the whole summer and the whole winter of being off at a ridiculous wage. You know, he did a lot of good things like that. But at the same time, you know, he lied to me and just killed my career.
Yeah.
Like, sign this contract and come join us, and we're going to kill your career. That's what we're going to do.
I mean, thank God that you were able to just tie a bow on it by coming back to WWE, doing the.
I think what Brett needs to understand is in another interview, Bischoff, I'll just play it, what Bischoff says.
You know,
On him.
Of course,
When life gets busy,
yeah, I should add that to what's stinging me, stupid advertisements on YouTube. I remember there was a day when there wasn't.
With the way he was treated in WCW. Did you read that, hear his comments? I'm sure you've heard them before.
You know, I didn't listen to your show with Brett.
Mm-hmm.
I'm generally aware of the kind of things that Brett says because he's been saying them for years. There's nothing new there.
Segue real quick. Bischoff. Look it up on YouTube, folks. Bret Hart, Eric Bischoff.
Let's talk quickly about your time in WCW. How was that for you, Aller and
It was, you know, I knew right away, I knew before I ever got there, that the only thing that WCW couldn't buy, that they couldn't attain, was somebody with any brains. It was, you're a good guy to talk to, because you know, and you and me can convert with each other a lot in those days. But talk about idiots running what a bunch of morons. But Eric Bischoff was one of the most stupid idiots I ever met in my whole life. I think back on it now, and I look at what happened with the business and where it went and what the potential was of the industry at that time, and wrestlers that ran it, especially in WCW. There was so much talent. They were on par with WWE as far as talent. If anything, Vince had to rebuild and remold and reshape a lot of his characters to catch up to WCW in '97. Yeah, had so much talent from Rey Mysterio, and you were a talent, and Benoit was a talent, Booker T was a talent, Kurt Hennig and Macho Man, and there was so much talent everywhere. And that Eric Bischoff was such an idiot. He couldn't do anything, and he couldn't stay. I shake my head today and I go, what a shame.
I'm sure he didn't break any news. He's just a miserable guy. He's the type of guy, and I said it in one of my responses on Twitter. Brett's a guy that's got a giant hole in his soul, and he's got to fill it with hate for somebody. When he came to work for me, he hated Vince McMahon. He hated everybody in the McMahon family. He hated Shawn Michaels. He didn't want to work with Hulk Hogan. He hated Ric Flair. He hated Kevin Nash. He hated Scott Hall. He hated everybody, and I had to listen to that.
So he didn't want to. He didn't want to do anything major with any of those guys.
No, it was.
Now, my take on that is Brett has said that he wanted to work with Booker T, Sting, and somebody else. But I think, from what I can gather here, that there was certain guys that maybe he just didn't like all the guys Bischoff just mentioned, but there were guys he wanted to work with. So he's very nitpicky. So, read into that what you want. Let's listen for more.
It was a major effort to get him and Rick on, the same page. And it was because of Brett, not because of Rick. Bret Hart just hated everybody. And if you've just watched him or listened to him over the years, he got a chance to go into the WWE Hall of Fame, so he buried the hatchet with Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels. Of course he did. But, look, Bret showed up in WCW, and, it makes me laugh when he says he doesn't like how he was treated, because we paid him a ton of money. We treated him extremely well. And here was a guy that would show up 45 minutes before television started, before a live TV show. And he'd show up looking like he'd been sleeping in a gutter for 3 days. And he had no energy. He had no real desire to integrate himself, insert himself into the process. He wasn't at all passionate about anything he did from day one.
See, this is where the crossing of streams happens, because on the show last week, Brett said that he showed up to WCW eager to really put Vince McMahon in his place and make WCW, this big giant thing, and make Vince McMahon rue the day that he had ever, thrown Bret Hart out of the company. But it's hard to believe that he would be able to have that attitude and also, have this attitude that you're describing of a guy who doesn't want to do anything.
I'm sure Bret, like a lot of people at this stage in his life, has to look back at certain times of his life and find ways to feel better about himself. And this is probably one of the ways that Bret does that. But I can assure you from day one, talk to people that worked with him. Nobody has to believe me. I don't expect them to. Especially when, Bret Hart's the one that's burying me on your show. But, talk to anybody that worked with him. He hardly ever showed up more than 20 minutes or an hour before showtime. And when he did, it was kind of like, okay, what do you have for me? What should I do? What do you want? And then if he liked it, great. If he didn't, he'd go and mope somewhere. And that was Bret from day one. He was a shell of his former self from WWE. And if Bret was really honest about it, he'd look back and realize that he didn't put the effort into it. When you see guys, when you look back and you look at the careers of guys like Steve Austin or Chris Jericho or, The Rock, although I've never worked with The Rock, so I probably shouldn't talk about him. Bill Goldberg is another good example. These are guys that are so passionate and so engaged in what they do, they almost drive you crazy. No, not almost, do. They'll drive you nuts.
Yeah.
Because they're that involved and engaged. And then you have the flip side of that. A guy that shows up, collects his check. What do you want me to do? Oh, okay, whatever. Go mope in a corner, go out and do it, and then complain about it. Damn. And that was Bret Hart.
Man, I hope he hears that.
And like I said, talk to people that worked with him at that time. It's not just my opinion. Anybody that's really honest about it, that isn't a close friend of Bret's and doesn't want to hurt his feelings, will probably say the exact same thing.
It's interesting that you bring up Chris Jericho.
Well, my take on that is two things. Number one, I think I believe the Bret not showing up on time a lot, because I think Steve Austin mentioned that in the Hall of Fame speech, that he would always show up, but he would always be late. And, of course, Steve was first in the building, last to leave. So I don't know what his MO or what his reasoning for that was, but he was doing that in WWE too, is my understanding. And what was the other point? Oh, creative. Like Brett, I think Shawn, I saw another interview on YouTube, if you look up Shawn Michaels shooting on Owen and Brett, he said that they weren't really creatively engaged. Like, they were really good wrestlers, but they weren't the type of guys that would come up to you and, like, if Russo had a creative idea, like Vince said that Rock would add some stuff to his creative, or Mick would add stuff to his creative, they wouldn't do that. They would rely heavily, like Bischoff said, show up, what do you got for me? And, you know, that's not a good foot standing to be, you know, on. If you don't have something to add to it, chances are it's not going to come out as good because nobody knows your character better than you. So I think Owen and Brett they didn't really thrive in the Attitude Era because they were just pure technical wrestlers. Not that they were horrible, you know, on the mic and stuff like that, but they just weren't, as Bischoff said, engaged. Or like Russo said, they just wouldn't add to their characters. So, and Brett is firing on a lot of people over the years. I think he just needs to... The truth of the matter is, I just don't think he was just that... He just wasn't going to thrive in that environment, and unfortunately he's blaming a lot of other people, and maybe there's some merit to the blame, I don't know. I wasn't there. But, in better news, Devils, 5-1 start to the season. Now, 82-game schedule, so I'm not getting ahead of myself, but I like what I'm seeing. Bratt's been good, Jesper Bratt. Miles Wood looks like a force out there. Bratt was a 6th round pick, too. He shares looked alright. Actually, he's looked pretty good, but a lot of people are surprised, the Devils, about their star, and I'm not. Great offseason addition, subtraction. We got rid of a lot of the older guys that were in and out of the lineup, and as I've said before, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is injury-prone guys, because then they're in and out of the lineup. Then the coach has to call up, or they have to call up guys from the minors, and then lines get mixed and matched, and it throws off the chemistry, so that's always been a pet peeve, but they're gone. Camilleri, Bennett, and Josephson. And we added Johansson, which I liked, although he was benched in the third the other day against the Rangers, who we beat. But yeah, I'm not really surprised the Devils are doing good. You know, there's a lot of young, talented kids that want to stay on the roster. And again, we got rid of the subtractions. And we got a new goalie coach, too. You know, you had Chris Terreri, who was the backup behind Marty for years. I remember going to some games where he was playing at, actually, Halloween in '98. But anyway, Terreri's like 5-something, and Corey Schneider's like 6'5", so it's not really a good goaltending coach matchup. Keith Kincaid was good the other day. The thing with him is, when he's on his game, he can really, hands down, be a really solid goalie in this league. Like, he's that good, but at the same time, he'll have games where he completely flops down, and he's like Swiss cheese. Like, there's no in-between with Kincaid. So, hopefully there's not, if he's doing that again this year, I say give up on him. But if he has a bunch of games where he's consistently good, keep him. You know, and then he's going to want to be a #1 goalie, maybe then we could trade him for something, unless, who knows. But yeah, great start, and Rangers are off to a 1-5 start. Always good to see them at the bottom of the conference. Not used to it over the last few years. But we'll see what happens. Good stuff the other day. Still trying to get used to the Devils uniforms. More on the Cornet Morella incident. Watching an actual recording from the event. Got to go. last little... Big commotion. And we're escorting Cornette and Morella out. Alright. I'm sure there's more videos up. I guess my final thoughts on that are, again, like the Bischoff-Bret Hart feud, I hope this feud continues. I don't know why. Maybe because I kind of like conflict, especially when it involves. You know, that's interesting. It wasn't 2-3 months ago when Bischoff and Cornette both decided to poke at Mr. Russo when he wasn't there to defend himself, and now maybe it's a little bit of karma. A few months later, a few gentlemen from their past decide to stick it up their asses. So, I wish I had my show back when it was Cornette and Bischoff against Russo, because I have a lot of thoughts on that too. But, I guess, you know what? Let's go to the phone lines here. Here's Mr. Boomhauer. He was actually on the scene of the incident. Hello? Mr. Boomhauer, are you there? Hey, Nick, tell you what, man. How you doing, man? Good, good. Mr. Boomhauer, now, it's my understanding you were in Detroit at this convention where Mr. Cornette and Mr. Morella interacted with each other. What happened exactly? Was there a lot of commotion? Nah, I tell you what, man, talking about dang old Cornette came out, man, he looked dang old cheeseburger, man. He went up, Morella like, ooh, I'm Italian, man. Ooh. And Cornette's like, what the fuck, man? And I'm sitting there dang old talking, man. Explosion everywhere, man. It's a fight, punch, boom, man. Now, is my understanding that Mr. Cornette started this whole incident, or Morella came up to him? No, I'll tell you what, Nick, talk about Cornette walking up, and Morella came up to him and like, hello, this is Santino Morella, and I'm here to make peace with you. And I talked about dang old Cornette, man, was like, what the fuck, motherfucker, I want to rip your head off. I'm talking about dang old goddamn, you ain't Vince Russo, I ain't gonna kill you. So, and it was exploding everywhere, man, talking about dang old that flying Barney, man. Wow. Now, Mr. Boomhauer, is this convention, did they have to shut down? Were there any other good talents there? No, I'll tell you what, man, talking about dang old, continue on, man, dang old cheeseburgers everywhere, man. Ah, cheeseburgers. I could go for some. Alright, Mr. Boomhauer, well, alright, I'm just glad to hear you're safe, right? Yeah, Nick, man, I'm talking about dang old bathroom break, man. Okay, great. Well, listen, I gotta go. I gotta close out my show, but thanks for calling in, and I guess I'll talk to you next week. Alright, man, talking about dang old Vince Russo, man, talking about dang old Buck 25, man, talking about dang old put on weight, man, the Jeff Lane goofball, talking about that up to the ass, man. Nah, Vince and Jeff are great guys. It's all good, Mr. Boomhauer. I got thick skin. But listen, I'll talk to you later, alright? Alright, man, talking about dang, continue on, man, woohoo! Alright, have a good night, man. He's a character. Alright. I guess that about wraps it up for this week. Now, I was planning to do a little WCW review with Retro Shred, but Retro is doing a lot of his own projects. Pretty talented guy, so I don't know when and if we're doing it. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of great stuff on the network. A lot of nitros. I'm irritated because now they're talking about putting off Thunder, which would have been great because there's a lot of continuity in between those Spring of 2000 Nitro episodes that I absolutely love and would have loved to have seen the Thunders to go along with it. So we'll see. It's because Buff Bagwell and Raven are suing them. It's basically from what I'm hearing. So we'll see next week. I'd love to get into I have an SNES over there. I could talk about my experience. I just played the SNES, the little portable thing that came out, and my opinion, I'll give my opinion on that maybe, because there's a few the SNES in general, and some games that I'd love to review. So, maybe knock some heads, finally get Scott to learn Margaritaville. We'll see. Only thing for sure about my show is nothing's for sure, so be sure to tune in next week. Like, subscribe, check us out on the brand. Check out Castrating the Marks on the Realm Network, worth every penny. And like I said, until then, I'm Nick Kolakowski, and then I will see you next week, folks. Only thing for sure about me, like I said, is nothing's for sure. Woo! Have a good night.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.